quite literally, I would say we're in the midst of an epidemic of incivility. And that's really because unkindness and rudeness are contagious. They're just like a flu or a virus, and they pass from one person to the next. So if we are treated rudely, even if we just see somebody else being treated rudely, it causes us to behave more rudely in our next encounters. And pretty soon it just spreads out and everybody's got the bug.
Welcome to Zestful Aging, where I interview thoughtful, inspiring, and influential guests who are contributing to the greater good and living with purpose and zest. My guests have included hospice workers, master athletes, writers, filmmakers, human rights advocates, musicians, dog rescuers, and they're all creating a better world. They're creating good in their own ways. And I'm your host, Nicole Christina, psychotherapist and fellow Zestful Ager, and this podcast is my way of bringing some light to a world that is feeling pretty broken right now. Our music is courtesy of Judy Banker, a previous guest on Zestful Aging, and Judy's also an eating disorder treatment specialist who supervised me in Ann Arbor in the early 90s. So life is kind of funny that way. Find out more about her and her music on judybanker.com. I know that everyone is feeling really stressed and anxious right now. We're all unsettled and feel out of control. So I created a free download for you for maintaining mental health based on my 30 years as a psychotherapist. Just go to zestfulaging.com and it is all yours. What could be more relevant and important than creating kindness right now? Donna does a great job talking about how both kindness and unkindness are contagious. We really have the power to create a positive ripple effect in the world. Well, as usual, I've got my little loyal Jack Russell Sparky who needs a haircut desperately right by my side. So let's begin. We have a great interview for you today. We're going to be speaking with Donna Cameron, who's spent her career as a business owner working with nonprofit organizations and causes. And it was there where she saw kindness in action. And she was just awed by its power to transform. And while she considered herself a reasonably nice person with occasional lapses into crankiness, she knew that true kindness was a step above. And in 2015, she committed to a year-long deep dive into kindness. And her 2018 book, A Year of Living Kindly, has earned more than a dozen awards, including the prestigious Nautilus Book Award, and we're just thrilled to have her. Welcome to the show, Donna.
Thanks so much, Nicole. It's delightful to be here, be with you and Sparky.
Yeah. I don't know if Sparky is aware that we're having this conversation. He's resting up for his walk. So kindness is, wow, it's a big one. And I think people are even more acutely aware that it seems like our country in particular might be getting less kind. Would you agree with that, or do you see it differently?
Well, we certainly see a lot of kindness, and I think over the last couple of months of the COVID-19 epidemic, there have been wonderful stories of kindness, but we've also seen a lot of stories of unkindness and greed and suspicion. Quite literally, I would say we're in the midst of an epidemic of incivility. And that's really because unkindness and rudeness are contagious. They're just like a flu or a virus, and they pass from one person to the next. So if we are treated rudely, even if we just see somebody else being treated rudely, it causes us to behave more rudely in our next encounters. And pretty soon it just spreads out and everybody's got the bug. So yes, I do agree. There's a lot of unkindness, but there's also good news from science, and that's that kindness is equally contagious.
Mm-hmm.
So my hope is that if more people understand that and realize that in every interaction we have a choice of which contagion we want to spread, people will start choosing kindness, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard.
Why is it hard, Donna? Why is it hard for us to choose kindness?
Well, it's not always our default position. I think a lot of us tend to respond to interactions in sort of a knee-jerk way. If somebody says something that we find questionable or offensive, we respond back instantly. And it's not always the best response. That's why I often say one of the most important skills of kindness is something very simple, but not necessarily easy. And that's learning to pause, to just stop and think about, well, this person, maybe they didn't really mean for what they said to come out this way, or, maybe they are a jerk, but that's not a reason for me to be a jerk too. Somebody else's incivility doesn't need to trigger mine. And just thinking about who we want to be and what sort of a world we want to promote. So that pause is one of the most powerful skills we can develop. I think it gives us, I like to say it gives us the gift of grace.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because what you're asking people to do is have some self-awareness.
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And to say, in the pause, first of all, to say, oh, yeah, remember, don't react, pause for a moment. How do we go about teaching that? Because reactivity seems like it's kind of a natural, as you say, someone is insulting or gruff, a natural response is just to give it right back. How do we teach people to say, okay, that was gruff, that was obnoxious, let me take a moment?
Well, I don't know if we can teach it so much as model it. And it takes practice, and nobody's ever going to become perfect at it unless they're, a Mother Teresa or the Dalai Lama or somebody. But I think coming up with some phrases that you might say in those circumstances and practicing them even, just on your own, and then trying it when somebody pushes your buttons. Things like, and you have to say them sincerely, not patronizingly or sarcastically. Just things like, it sounds like you're having a bad day, or I'm sorry if I offended you. And even if you don't think you did, there's nothing wrong with apologizing. Or just saying with recognition, especially in times like we're going through now, it's been a tough day. And just acknowledging that it's hard. And then, maybe when the encounter is over, saying genuinely, I hope the rest of your day goes well. And it really gives you energy to be able to say things like that to people. And sometimes you see such a turnaround. Somebody will change their tune, their tone. Sometimes they'll even say, oh, I'm sorry if I seemed short earlier. I'm just, I'm dealing with a lot right now. So just giving people the benefit of the doubt is such a gift.
You're talking, of course, about compassion.
Mm-hmm.
And how to grow compassion and to see that everyone is suffering at one level or another.
It's true. We're all carrying, I think, an invisible load of pain, and we don't know what other people are experiencing. It may be that on the outside it looks like they have everything going for them and life is wonderful, but who knows what might be happening in their life that we don't see and that they don't say, but it may spill out in how they behave. I think another skill of kindness is curiosity. Tapping into your curiosity when you see somebody behaving in a way that's questionable and thinking, giving them the benefit of the doubt and then thinking maybe there's something going on that I don't know. Maybe she misunderstood, or maybe she didn't mean for her words to come out exactly like this. Giving that benefit of the doubt and saying, I bet there's something I'm willing to acknowledge that there's something I don't know here.
Aha, I see. So there's a humility in it as well.
Yeah. There's a quote, and I wish I could remember right now who said it, but it's if in a choice between being right and being kind, choose kind.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of us always choose right. And that's sometimes because that's how we were raised. We were raised because in our families we were rewarded for being smart or being right. But kind is better.
Are there different cultures, you think, that promote this more actively than others?
I think kindness is pretty universal. It may be that what people see as kind in one culture can be a little bit divergent from another culture, but it's just like when I talk to groups, somebody will say, well, this is a really Christian notion, isn't it? And I say, no, there's no religion that doesn't have kindness as a tenet.
Oh, right. All of the great religious leaders, right, talk about that. All of them, yes.
And I think it may be that in some cultures, kindness may be quieter and you're not so much, there's a little bit more reverence or respect. But I don't think there's any culture where kindness isn't pretty important, pretty central.
I know I don't live too far from the Canadian border, and I have Canadian guests and Canadian listeners, and I know that they are self-conscious or they joke about that they like to apologize a lot, that's something that they do as a culture. Everything is, I'm sorry, and I don't know if that makes them more kind. I do notice that when we cross the border, things just seem a little bit less competitive and aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious about that history. I don't know anything about that, but it certainly is something that there's an awareness about. They like to apologize.
Oh, that's interesting. I know Canadians do have a reputation for kindness, and my experience whenever I travel to Canada is that it's a very, very kind country, but I think I've experienced that in many countries.
Sure. So talk a little bit about some of the misconceptions, because we all know about kindness, and I think we all would agree it's a good thing. But not everybody devotes themselves, certainly as you have, to really focusing on it, learning about it, practicing it. Tell me about what the misconceptions are, why people might not embrace this.
Well, I think a lot of people view kindness as something that's weak, that's sort of inconsequential, that kind people are wishy-washy or easy to manipulate. I remember being on a plane a few years ago and talking to my seatmate and mentioning that I was writing a book about kindness, and she said, "Oh, isn't that sweet?" And I swear she almost patted me on the head.
Oh.
And kindness isn't sweet. It's strong and it's courageous and it's even assertive, and it's hard. There's a real difference between being kind and being nice. And I would say that nice is pretty easy. It doesn't ask all that much of us. We can be nice without really extending ourselves, without putting out a lot of effort, without taking a risk. Where kindness, we can be nice and still make judgments about people or be impatient with them. Where kindness asks us to suspend judgment, and it asks us to take a risk, to very often when we extend a kindness, we don't know if the other person is ready for it. Sometimes people reject it or misunderstand. A lot of us aren't good receivers. So even when someone offers us a kindness, sometimes we'll refuse it, whether it's a seat on the bus or a gift or even a compliment. Mm-hmm. So when you're being kind, you're risking all of those things. You're risking that rejection. You're risking calling attention to yourself. And we don't know how that's going to play out. So it does take some courage.
You're opening yourself up. Is that this? I mean, that, as I read your book and you talked about, you've always been nice. Your mom was nice. All of this. The idea is that opening yourself up and engagement is very different than just smiling or so other gestures that we might say are nice. Am I getting that?
Yeah, I think that really does get to the essence of it. It's sort of taking a deep dive into the interaction and not just staying on the surface. It's being willing to, sometimes it means being willing to speak up for someone who's being marginalized or treated badly, or being the first person to stand up. I've recently done a lot of work with kids and bullying, and really the more I learn about bullying, and this isn't just kids and bullying, but adult bullies in the workplace and things like that, if one bystander speaks out and says, hey, this isn't appropriate, or you need to stop that's usually enough to make a bully back off. But it takes that one person to be strong enough to step out there and say, not cool. And then as soon as other people see that, they'll step in too. But being the first person to have that courage, and I think kindness really does take courage.
Mm-hmm. This is so interesting. Hello, Zesties. I want to tell you about one of my all-time favorite exercise and stress reduction tools, which I am really relying on during this quarantine. But I've sung its praises for years. The benefits are seemingly endless. It's great for toning and strengthening muscles. It improves your lymph system, your metabolism. It helps with joint pain and balance. And it's even used by NASA astronauts because it's such an efficient way to exercise. And if you're older or you're worried about your balance, you can order a stabilizer bar to hang on to. I'm talking about my NEDAC Rebounder mini trampoline. I put on my music and I have my own dance party. Because for me, exercise needs to be fun and invigorating. Otherwise, I don't want to do it. Now is not the time for the philosophy of no pain, no gain, because we're in enough pain. This is a way to feel good and energized and have fun. It really does help mood as well. And I like that NEDAC is made in the USA and it is really solid. I've had mine for 15 years and it's still in great shape. The NEDAC Rebounder will help us get through this quarantine in better shape mentally and physically. And there's also a model that folds up if space is an issue. One of my clients puts it on her driveway and uses it while she's watching her kids during the quarantine. Anyway, I can't recommend NEDAC Rebounders enough. They are a worthwhile investment in your health and overall well-being, especially now. If you are interested in a mini trampoline, please don't buy a cheap one. Those can be actually dangerous, and it is really worth investing in a good quality one. And right now, if you use the coupon code just for Zestful Aging listeners, the code is Zestful. They are going to include a free cover for you. So go to NEDAC.com. It's NEEDAK.com. zestfulaging.com. And if you have any questions, you can contact me at zestfulaging.com. I really am their biggest fan. I'm curious if you remember the moment you decided to write this book, what led up to it?
Well, that's an interesting question, because I really didn't start out with the intention of a book in mind. I've been interested in kindness for well over 20 years, and always been aware of the difference between being nice and being kind. And so for years I would set an intention, not really a New Year's resolution, but almost like that. I would set an intention of being kind, cultivating kindness. And then it would fall by the wayside when my work became stressful, or the hours it took to grow our company were mounting. And I would just sort of let that resolution fade. And it's not that I was a bitch or even unkind. I just settled for being nice. And then finally in 2015, I really wanted to commit to kindness. Not just being kind, but understanding it, researching it, investigating it. I'm kind of nerdy, Nicole, and I love research.
You're speaking to the choir right here.
Good.
This is a nerd fest right here.
Yeah, great. I just love doing research. So when I decided to focus for a year on kindness, it wasn't just on, how can I be kind to, this person that I'm interacting, but it was looking at the science.
Right, the neurobiology.
Yeah, and fortunately in recent years, there's been a lot of studies from major universities and psychologists and physicians and economists about kindness. So there's lots of research about the benefits of kindness. So anyway, I decided I wanted to hold my feet to the fire and stay with this and not let it fade. So I decided to create a blog and invite a few friends to follow it, knowing that if I just let that commitment fade, it would be a pretty visible failure. And for me, that's all it took to be accountable. Every Wednesday for a year, I had a blog post to post between 7 and 8 a.m. And before I knew it, I had a lot of people following the blog and engaging with me, and wonderful conversations about kindness. It was really a community of very kind people who were interested in understanding and spreading kindness. And this, as we've said, was the beginning of 2015, and it was really a different world back then. It was before the presidential candidates declared. I think there might have been one or two, but they were pretty civil and decorous. But by midsummer of that year, everything changed, and we saw candidates slinging mud and name calling and trash talking, and that's when I think this epidemic of incivility really, really got underway.
So was that part of what spurred you, that you saw the effects of not being kind and felt like you had to address that in your own life?
It really did. I think my thoughts about kindness became less theoretical and more real world. So when I started at the beginning of 2015, I was assuming this was going to be a one-year project, but really early on, I realized that I could not claim kindness for a year and then move on to learning to play the clarinet the next year, or taking up contract bridge or something. So I really wanted to commit to kindness for as long as I'm on the planet. And it was actually my blog followers who suggested that I turn my thoughts into a book. And as soon as they said that, I thought, well, of course, yeah, that would be wonderful fun. I had written another book a few years earlier with a co-author, so I sort of knew what I might be getting into. And it just was the next natural step. I think the only hesitation I had was as I started talking to people and potential publishers and agents about it, everybody kept referring to it as a self-help book. And I have to confess, I'm not a big fan of self-help books. There are some really great ones out there, and there are some really great ones on my shelf that I treasure. But there are also an awful lot where the author seems to take the view that that they have found the true path, that if you just follow their prescription and do what they say, you'll have this great life. And I don't think it works that way. I think we read books like that to get ideas and decide how we can apply them to our own life. And we say, well, yeah, this works for me, but this isn't so much. But as soon as I realized I could write the book that way, I could share what I learned and invite people to think about their own situation and their own questions and choices, then it just sort of fell into place, and it was such fun to write.
I think one of the very helpful aspects of your book is at the end you have a little paragraph saying, what do you think about this? Why don't you try this? It's very conversational and very, non-prescriptive in a sense. It's really drawing the reader in and saying, what would it mean if you did this? I mean, it's very much about take this in, think about it, process it, try it, and see how it goes.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that. That's sort of what I was aiming for, and that's what I want the reader to get. I want them to be able to say, this is what I want to focus on, this is what works for me, and these other things are very nice, but this isn't relevant now, but maybe it will be later.
Mm-hmm. Good. Yes. Maybe you're having compassion for your audience, knowing that this is very hard and that it's not going to be perfect and that there's going to be good days and bad days, some days more kind than others.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Nobody's ever going to become a paragon of kindness, or there are always going to be lapses or times when we're oblivious. We don't notice that there's somebody right in front of us who needs our kindness, or maybe there's somebody who's extending a kindness to us and we don't notice that.
Mm-hmm. Talk a little bit, if you would, about social anxiety, and certainly that's a thing into itself. And as a psychotherapist, I certainly see a lot of that. But we're seeing anxiety now at levels that we've never seen before. And often what happens is people are so inward and so worrying about, did I say this right? Did I look right? Does my hair look okay? Did I sound dumb? Did I interrupt? It's so much about self-assessment. You talk about kindness as helping with that.
Yeah, that was a fascinating study to discover. This one came out of the University of British Columbia in Canada, and it was a study of young people, young adults, and it showed that if people focused on kindness, it really alleviated social anxiety, even debilitating social anxiety. And it was a lot of simple things like helping a friend, doing somebody's dishes without being asked. And I really could relate to this one myself. I don't think I have debilitating social anxiety, but one of the things that I hate is cocktail parties, receptions. And I was in a profession where we went to a lot of conferences and lots of meetings, and part of that was often the obligatory cocktail party or the opening reception. And I love talking to people, and I love interacting with people, but that setting to me was so intimidating. I just dreaded it. And so I tried to reframe it, to think about, well, there's probably somebody here who feels the same way as I do, and I want to find that person. I even, for an organization I belong to, I even signed up to be the conference chair and to help plan these things. And I made it my point in these events that I dreaded to connect people, to look for people and ask them what they wanted to get out of, what they were hoping to get out of the conference, and was there anybody they especially wanted to meet. And then I would try to connect them. And I realized as soon as I stopped worrying about my own, how was I doing and how was I coming across and was I saying the right things, as soon as I stopped being self-conscious, I started having fun. And
there's a freedom in that.
Oh, there is. There is. It's just a matter of, it's often just reframing.
Mm-hmm. Very different orientation, away from self and towards others.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of our listeners around the world are going to say, I want to be more kind. And after listening to you and hearing all of the benefits for others and for ourselves, will you give us a couple little starters that are not too overwhelming, but something to practice?
Well, I think one of the really easy ones to do is, as we enter an interaction, whether it's going to a meeting or just meeting a new person, pausing before we do and saying, what's the kind response here? What can I do in this situation to be kind? And then paying attention. You mentioned earlier about being self-aware. Paying attention is huge.
Mm-hmm.
I think of it as, are we listening for the music or the missed note?
Oh, wow. I love that.
Yeah. And it's, I've known a lot of people in my life, really good people, wonderful people, whose natures are such that they really like to criticize. They like to be the person who finds the typo in the newsletter or in the menu, who notices the spot that was missed when their car was washed or something like that. And if we spend our time looking for what's wrong, then all we get out of it is we become people who are really good at seeing what's wrong. Mm-hmm. So I think approaching things with a different attitude, trying to look for what's right, instead of noticing somebody has crooked teeth or they're missing a button, notice what a great smile they have or their intention. So kindness isn't, I was going to say it isn't hard. It's simple, but it isn't easy. It's, I think paying attention is one of the things like pausing that's just essential. And then we talked about this a little bit earlier, trying not to find offense, even when people blunder and say things badly. Giving that benefit of the doubt and practicing saying some of those things like, I'm sorry if I offended you, or, let's hope the rest of the day goes better for both of us. And being genuine about it.
Mm-hmm. Being forgiving, in a sense.
Yes, forgiving is a big chunk of it. Mm-hmm. And then another piece, Nicole, I think is a lot of people don't extend kindness because they think it's just too puny. They don't think about the fact that I think most of the kindnesses we experience as we go through our day are really small things. They're a greeting from our barista, or a car allowing us to merge on the highway, greeting our coworkers, a smile, eye contact. They're all really little things, and they're really easy to do. But you know what? They're also really easy not to do. Mm-hmm. And they make such a difference, because if I have a positive interaction with somebody, even if it's the clerk at the grocery store or the person making a coffee, then I tend to be kinder in my next interaction, and then that person will be kinder.
That
So
sounds so important for us to remember that it may seem puny, but back to your research about contagion, I mean, that's so important that we actually can start a ripple effect of kindness by being gracious or looking the grocery clerk in the eye and saying thank you or making a positive comment.
yeah, I call them micro kindnesses. There's an author, John Blakey, who wrote a wonderful book called The Trusted Executive, and he calls them TNTs, or tiny noticeable things. But they really do make such a difference in our days. It's sometimes the difference between having a good day or a bad day. I guess a last tip I would say is don't aim for the stars. Saying I'm going to go from being an oblivious person who settled
Crank
for
pot.
nice, to suddenly becoming Mother Teresa's, kinder sister, is not realistic, and it's not going to last. But maybe setting an intention of this week I'm going to try to be 5% kinder, or maybe 10% kinder, and just thinking about what that is. And sometimes that's being kind to yourself. A lot of us don't think we deserve it, or we don't have time for it, but it has to start there.
So important, and I think so much more complicated than in terms of how it affects us, our life. It becomes a positive feedback loop. We feel happier, and so it almost has a life of its own. That's wonderful. I'm wondering, Donna, what's the legacy you would like to leave?
I have thought about that, Nicole, and I'd like to be an encourager. I think that's really important to me, is to be a person who encourages others. I've thought if I can be a fairly kind person, then I won't die with regrets. I'm not aiming to change the world, but I'm hoping that my kindnesses will touch other people, and their kindnesses will then touch other people, and then together we'll change the world.
Oh my goodness, what a beautiful and powerful sentiment. It just oh goodness, it's so important right now. We're all suffering and we're all feeling upended, and these little micro kindnesses really are, I think, even more important as all of our anxiety is up, and we're feeling a sense of scarcity.
Yes, yeah, and that's an approach too. Do we look at the world through a lens of scarcity? If you get something, does that mean there's less for me? Or do we look at it in terms of abundance? And I think that abundant view really is much more rewarding all around. And I think it's also more true. There are very few things where if one person has success or acquires something, it means that somebody else doesn't or can't.
I think that's really true. Donna, where can people find out more about you and find out more about your new multi-award-winning book, some of which I was kind of laughing to myself as you were talking about self-help, because some of it is in the self-help category, all of these awards. So where can they find out more about you?
Well, I have a website, which is www.ayearoflivingkindly.com. So that's always a good place to start. And then it's at an awful lot of bookstores. Lots of local indie bookstores are carrying it, or if they don't currently have it in stock, they can order it. Another place where it's available is a new online bookstore called bookshop.org, which is a great new discount site that gives a portion of its proceeds to your local indie bookseller.
Oh, something for me to know about and highlight. As a fellow nerd, I buy a lot of books.
Yeah,
so,
and I mean, of course it's available on Amazon too, but right now our indie bookstores are really hurting.
Okay.
So anything we can do to support indie bookstores, I'm in favor of.
Yes. Well, speaking of gratitude, I am so delighted that we got to spend time together today. This is such an important subject, really something near and dear to my heart, and I've really enjoyed being able to learn more about it.
Oh, thank you, Nicole. This was such a fun conversation. I forgot that we were recording, and I just felt like we were having conversation over tea.
Excellent. That's what we're going for.
Well, you've nailed it.
I love it. Since this interview, I've been more intentional about choosing kindness. It's really been interesting because I consider myself a pretty kind person, but I've learned some things. So why don't you try it and let me know how it goes? I love Donna's mission to make the world kinder, and that's what Zestful Aging is all about, creating a legacy for the common good. And creating a legacy is a very important part of aging well, and if you want to find out more about how to age well, check out my course, Zestful Aging, and you can just go to zestfulaging.com and check out the web courses. Thank you so much for joining us on Zestful Aging. If you like the podcast, please share it with some of your friends. I love to hear from my listeners. Send me an email at NicoleChristina.com. It's no secret that everyone's feeling pretty restless and unsettled right now. Our lives are upside down and the future is feeling pretty uncertain. But if you're anything like me, organizing my stuff can help me feel a little calmer. It's something I can do to help me feel a little more in control and in charge of my own life. If you think decluttering could help you feel better and you could use a little assistance with that, check out the online course I've developed with professional organizer and designer Carrie Luderin. It's called Too Much Stuff. And Too Much Stuff is different from other courses or articles or guidance you may have used up. We give you clear steps to deal with the clutter and the tools to help you face the overwhelming feelings and the emotions that come up when we're going through our clutter. And a lot of those emotions are just feeling anxious or guilty or just basically flooded with a lot of different confusing feelings. The course is really practical. It's realistic. The lessons are short and punchy, and they're really manageable. We're not trying to set you up for some long exploratory, super in-depth, burdensome experience. We want something really helpful for you right now. We all need help with our anxiety. So being surrounded by more calm and less chaos can really help. So now's a good time to clear out the clutter so we can focus on what's really important in our lives. So find out more at zestfulaging.com. You'll see more about this under the web courses tab. If you have any questions, just shoot me an email at zestfulaging@gmail.com. Thanks so much. And stay tuned next week for another interview with a fascinating and inspiring guest.